We're walking up in Ephesus, one of the very important streets. Underneath, you have a whole sewer system, drainage system, businesses on each side. But if you notice the pillars all the way up, down and up the street, on them, they had images of benefactors. In the first century, it's called patron-client relationship. And as we walk up towards the top of the city here, we're going to notice an image, one of the few that are left, of Alexander. Is a benefactor. It's a doctor. He tried to find the cure for malaria, and he happened to die of the same thing he was trying to find the cure for. But the importance of having an image of him was as a benefactor of the city who tried to do something good for them. Now, this is a very important concept that we never really study in the first century writings, understanding patron-client relationship. And only here, in some of these imperial cities, you can see the importance of that. When you walk down the city, you will see images of benefactors, people who have done something for the community, either a temple for the emperor, imperial cult, dedicating a temple for the benefactor, the patron of the kingdom, the emperor. And here we have an example of a person who did something for the city, and there was a recognition of what he did. Now, it's interesting that we see in the Bible, specifically in Hebrews chapter 1, verse 3, says that Yeshua becomes the image of the invisible God, the express, the representation of his glory. Only when you come to these places do you recognize the importance of understanding what Paul and the writers of the book of Hebrews, as well as Paul as the writer of the Romans and all the letters, and he's using a language that was very well represented in the first century, saying the image of representing somebody or something. In this case, our Messiah, the representation of the glory of the Creator, in which he is now the benefactor, giving us access to the way of salvation, which is found only in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So, patron-client relationship is a very important topic that you must consider in your studies of the first century writings, and only when you're in Ephesus, and we'll see this again in Pergamum, but only when you're in Ephesus, you get to really grasp the importance of what they thought about you if you did something well for the city. Now, what will you do for God, the Creator, if he sent his Son in order that you will have eternal life? He becomes our mediator, a benefactor, so for us to have access to the great patron, the Creator of heaven and earth. We are in the upper city of Ephesus, and we just stumbled into the image of Nike. All of you know it as Nike, the God of victory. And it was probably the top of the entrance to the gate of Hercules right here on my left. Why is this important to understand? When we study the New Testament, we never consider the contrast between what the writer, where he's at, where he's living, what he's dealing with, the gods of the nations, and everything that had to do with that. Okay? As we look at the image of the goddess Nike, or Nike, we understand now the message of the New Testament in which he's saying that victory comes through Messiah, that God has given us the victory. Now, to us, when we read it, sometimes it makes no sense. But when you look into the context of the culture they lived in, because that was not only one of the gods of Ephesus, pretty sure it was one of the gods of Asia Minor and the Greco-Roman world. When you contrast, who gives you the victory, the emperor or the God of Israel? Nike or the God of Israel? See, that's the context. You have to consider the language, the culture, archaeology, geography, topography. So when you read the text and you see the page, black and white page, white on black letters on white paper, it's more than that. There's a history. This gives you a wider perspective of the panoramic understanding of what Paul and the other writers were dealing with. And when we look at it from that perspective, now when you walk through the city and you get to the gate of Hercules and above it you see Nike, like they call it today, Nike, then a believer in Messiah will say, it's not Nike who gives you the victory. It's the God of Israel who conquers all things through Yeshua the Messiah.